Hello! In this demonstration I want to show or focus primarily on volumetrics, unlike my previous tutorial which kind of just gave a general overview. So I've just opened up a scene here I did way back, just to have something visually interesting as we work with volumetrics. So right off the bat, what you want to do is, if you don't have a separate window open, go up to the top right corner here, click until it's across here, and drag. Now you're going to go into the icon up here on the top left of the right window, editor type, click on that, and navigate towards shader editor. What's going to do is default into the object of what was selected. As you can see here, something I use. We'll go to object on the top left. We navigate to world, and now this is our world. Now currently I am not selecting where the lights are enabled, so we can just see things here, because if I go into the rendering view, I have my emissive materials showing, but there's generally no light. I'll come into play later on. By default, also, this would be gray. What you want to do is just drag this all the way down till it's black. Now what that is just the general ambient light of the world. And I don't want anything to bounce around. I said previously in my video, I like to showcase things as if they were a stage play or a musical. Just fantastical lighting. Alright, so once we have this here, let's just move this back here so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to add a volume scatter and connect it to the volume node in the world output. Shift A, search, volume, scatter, click that down, and now I'll connect it. After I go back here, you can see the lights have disappeared. Now the reason for that is because the density is 1, which means that's how thick the fog is. The density is very fine. I find that values with 2 decimal places generally work best, but I guess in higher strengths you might have to play around with that. So what I mean by that is, like, if I go to 0.02, you can see the lights are back up. 0.08, you can see it's slowly fading off in the distance here. 0.08 seems to be something that I like. It looks like the fog ends just back here. So what am I going to do now is just click here with 3D cursor, because that means everything's going to be created at this spot in the world. That's with Blender. Every time you create something new or bring it to the world, that's where it's going to spawn or be created. So I'll put one here, Shift A, and let's just add our first light. Now I'm just going to add this over here, light, area light, and just going to drag that up, and let's go back to here, and you can see nothing's really showing yet. Now the scales are something that needs to be addressed in Blender, because it uses Blender units. Currently my model is completely massive, like it's gigantic, so the values I have to use may be a little insane. So let's try this out here, because I mean, okay, like for example, 10 watts, right? Your average light bulb can be anywhere between, I don't know, 50? You can see, like, it's starting to show here, but it's not really going all the way down here. If I do 150, now we're starting to see some reflection here. I'll drag this up. See, it's like disappearing. If I bring this all the way back, kind of disappears. If I do something like 350, now we're starting to get somewhere here. Also, in the previous video, I talked about like how I don't really like this thing here, this like kind of light here. But since we could probably put this and cast it up on these emissive objects, so I'm just going to click up here, add a light area. Let's try this 350, and you can see something show up. So how about I do 500, 2500, and that seems to be getting somewhere where I like. Excellent. Maybe a little too much. Let's dial that down a bit, and let's add it over here. Now if I click these two, I don't think, can I add, no, you can't add arrays. Alright, sadly, so I'm just gonna bring this up, bring this back here, and gonna keep copying it in the back. don't think I'll do it all the way, just for this demonstration purpose. That's looking kind of cool, right? Whoa, look how cool that looks. Alright. So, you can also play around with the amount of fog going through with this setting, anisotropy. I think that's how you say it. You can see here, this is how you can start like fine-tuning and like how much of the light is up here, and like how much of the light is distributed downwards. Again, you know, if you just want like the bloops there, or like it being blown out, there is no wrong setting here. Again, it just depends on your artistic taste. I kind of like it a little blown out, as if there's like a lot of mist going up here. We can play around with this a bit more. Maybe right there. And now with the density, I think I'll just show you here. You can see what's happening with the fog as it disappears and comes back, and you can really get some cool values here. I did add a statue at the very end over here. Piece of cloth. Let's see if we can break him out a bit. Let's put an area light. Let's click this to toggle it on. If we go back and turn this on, like he's barely being shown here, so let's see if we can bring him out. He's 2000. Yeah, okay. And now let's try and change some of the values here so we can see what is happening. Let's try and lead the eye that way, eh? 3500. Bring him up a bit. That looks kind of menacing. Brutalist. Oh. So you can just imagine it slowly going this way. Excellent. Okay. So that's pretty much an overview there. However, there was some other things you can do with volume scatter that I kind of blitzed. So we have the volume scatter here, and with the density we can feed in textures, which will then start manipulating how the fog is being distributed. Now what I mean by that is, let's say if we add a noise modifier, a noise texture, and feed that in, it may not work because this setting of 0.04 is really low, and the ability to tune our levels of the noise texture. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say if I bring this into the volume, it's all purely all white. You can probably see like a little setting here, because probably that's where the texture of the scale is. Oh, sorry, that's probably where it gets a little bit more darker here. So if we bring in a color ramp, and if I start bringing the darkness up, you can see now what's happening. Now we can see the texture. Just to show you what's happening on a smaller scale, let's just bring this here. I'm going to create a new, let's turn it on, create a new plane. And let's just do that. Click on this world. You don't have to follow this tutorial here. This is just a demonstration purpose on what's happening with the noise texture and color ramp. Let's go to the object. I'm just going to create a new one, and let's paste that in, delete this, color to surface. And so you can see this is what's happening with the fog. The white is where the density is higher, and the black here is where there is no density, so that's where we can see all the light stuff. Now by default, it looked like that. So if I go back into world, turn this on, and do this, volume, that's what's happening right now here. Basically volume looks like that. But if actually, you know what, let me just drag another window here. Hopefully you can see this on YouTube. Let's go to shader editor, which is already selected. Nice. Go to object. As I bring this up, you can see it's like little cloud textures here. So if I go back into here and do the same thing, you can see that's what's happening here. Now you can play with the scale. Let's lower this here. Oh, go back here. We can with a noise texture. You can play with the scale. So this is what the scale will look like as the fog changes. The detail, like so, how stylized. Well, I said that really loud. How stylized look like, or how air quotes, realistic you want it to be. For me, I like it being a little more stylized like this, so less detail. More detail, it ends up having a lot of noise, but this might work for the purposes of what you want. The roughness, in terms of like how the shape is broken up, really works kind of nicely when you have stuff like that. And the distortion is like, yeah, kind of like how wispy it gets. It looks like it's following some sort of distortion map here. I don't know what that's in reference to, but you can like move it around like this. You can also animate these properties too. But this is just a small overview of what you can do with the fog texture like that. There's also different parameters here. Since we're using it in a 4D space, distortion, W kind of changes the way it looks like this. So we can probably integrate this into our fog. And again, this is how you fine tune it this way. You can bring it like this and have it more crisp. So this is going to be more stylized if you clap the values of the light against the dark. But again, if you have more range, it's going to look a bit more realistic. If you do it like this, it's going to look a bit more stylized. Alright, so that's a small overview of that. Now let's try that out with the fog. Let's join the areas here. Put this here like this. And let's go to 4D. Does this work? Yes, it does. Okay. So let's crank the scale down so we can see what we're doing here. Again, 0.2. When you see stuff like this noise, that might work again for, if you want it to look like this, you can have it at a higher scale. I like lower values because it looks like that's too low, like that, because it looks a bit more like this fog or steam coming along here. And now you can see here we can play with these values. You can see what happens when we go a bit higher. You can also clamp this a bit more to have it a bit thicker in certain areas if you want that. So let's say we have it like that. That's kind of cool. Let's say, do we want detail? So you can see what happens, a little more detail, less detail. Again, kind of like in between. And now distortion. Let's see, have it a bit like that. Maybe you want more volume here. There we go. That's kind of cool. But, Alan, how does that work with volume? Well, we're going to plug the color into the density. So now it's taking these values that we have, because I already plugged this into volume just to show you what it looks like. And now we're going to plug it back here into volume. It's going to take a while to think. And now, this is what it looks like. It's distorting the light around and creating this kind of like cool fog-like effect. Now we can have more fog if you want, if we click on the black color here and bring it up and raise it slightly up. So then we can have like a bit of half and half. It is also possible to mix fog textures, fog textures or fog shaders together, but that requires like a whole other tutorial to go through how those mixed shaders work. But I'm just putting it out there, it is possible. So this is specific to the world, so that means this whole fog is everywhere in the world, which is kind of cool. Actually, let's just do some really large value. You can see here, it's everywhere. It's huge, it's massive, it's all around. Sometimes you may not want that. Let's say if you like this effect but want it to be isolated in an area, we can practically just copy these settings and put it inside a box. So what I mean by that is, let's just disconnect this. Let's create a box or a cube, and let's just say only in this area that the fog has materialized due to biblical or scientific means. Alright, so let's go to object, create a new thing. I'm just going to paste this friend here, volume, and now it is here, right here. It's hard to see it, so let's just crank the scale up a bit more, and let's make this a little bit large. And so now the fog will only be here. I think this might save some rendering time if you're only focusing on this area here with the frame. So there it is. So it's only here. You can rotate it around. So the good thing now is I can just copy, paste that, and start like shifting things around this way. Maybe making it a bit higher or lower. this. And if you want to like change up the settings for this one, make sure to make another material, because these two cubes are linked with the same volume texture. Just make sure we name this so we don't get lost. I haven't named anything here. So volume, do this, volume 01. So now we know that these two are different, volume and volume 01. Let us change the scale on this, 0.2. Oh, you know what, let's do 10. So now it's all this like little misty foggy thing here. Let's drag this down and let's maybe move this a bit back. And now we have a fog within a fog. Alright, that's super short. Hopefully that'll give you some tools to make cool looking moody scenes, because that's what I want to see more in art. Moody scenes. Dark, medieval, moody scenes. Alright, thank you.